Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross from PTCGRadio, and now that I've posted a deck breakdown of the US Nationals winning list, it's time to go play a couple of games. So as I am wont to do, I'm deciding to record the first game or two, depending how long the game actually is, that I'm playing with this particular deck. We'll be able to see how well this deck sets up and how well it runs against various things. Hopefully we won't draw a terrible matchup. Now, we are going second here. I assume we're going second. My opponent, I can't imagine, would choose to go first. And one of the things which is really good about this deck, that the creator of the deck, Luke, talks about on his blog, is that he wanted to play a deck that didn't mind going second. We are playing Landorus and we're playing Mewtwo, and both Landorus and Mewtwo, and you see we've mulligan there, which isn't the best start ever. And it looks like we are playing against a Charizard deck, maybe with Pyro, which is kind of fun because it looks a lot like US Nationals final. Now, I did talk about... no, we're going second here, of course. We're going to get some damage on the board, that's fine. I did talk about the problems with potentially not having enough supporters in this deck, and that's something we're seeing straight away. We start without a supporter in our opening hand. We do hit a Juniper, which is lovely, and it does look a lot like the US Nationals winners deck. But the problem is, we're going to have to get rid of a lot of energy very, very quickly here. On the upside, we hit a Laser Verbank. And I am going to have to Juniper here, because we need Trubbishes out, we need Raichus out, we need basically a bunch of stuff to help us here. If we can get a turn 2 Garbodor out, the fact that my opponent's going to get a Pyro really isn't very important at all. Now we're going to pop a Druddigan down there as well, so we can have some attacking options. I'm not going to put a second Landorus down for the second, and the reason, very simply, is because I don't want to get too many EXs down if my opponent goes full on Charizard. I don't know what my opponent's playing. But if they go full on Charizard, I'm going to want some non-EX attackers to have a go at him with. So my opponent's going to get a Pyro up here. I'm not terribly worried about Pyro. Now he is attacking here, which kind of sucks, because he's going to be able to do 90 damage, assuming he discards that fire energy. What would be lovely is if I hit my Enhanced Hammer here, but the way I've got to go here, basically, and you see my opponent is... He appears to be playing a very similar list to Michael Pramwat in the final. And essentially, this matchup is going to go down to who draws better. I haven't had an amazing start, but we can pull it back from here. Now, I do get an Ultra Ball, which is fantastic. Now, what I don't really want to do here is discard any of this stuff, but I want my Landorus as a really good attacker, and so I'm going to have to kill these two cards. I don't want to, but Raichu's going to be too gosh darn good in the long run. So, let's pop down a Garbodor. Now, the one thing I've got to be careful of here is getting my Garbodor trapped active, as I talked about in my deck breakdown. But I do hit a Floatstone there, which is fantastic. I can now play my Hypnotoxic Laser to poison the Pyro, and I'll be able to use my Hammerhead as well. I would like to use that Ultra Ball, but I've already got 3 supporters in the discard. I don't think I can afford to get rid of another one, so I'm afraid Raichu is going to have to wait for the time being, and we'll just Hammerhead. I'm not terribly worried about getting the Mewtwo at this stage, because I've got my own Mewtwo's which can take down Mewtwo later. Let's focus on the Pyros. Now, if my opponent hits a heads on a laser, and you can see the muscle band there, if my opponent can hit a heads on a catcher, I should say, or has a Lysandre and can kill my Garbodor, then we're potentially in trouble. So maybe I should have, in the previous turn, gone about getting a... So there's going to be no Lysandre, but he still could play a catcher. Maybe I should have gone and got on a second Trubbish there to try and keep the pressure up with the Garbodor. The good news is, if my opponent keeps that Pyro active, and you see he's not going to do that, if he had kept that Pyro active, he would have died from poison. Now, we've seen the double switch there. If he hits a catcher, this is going to be absolutely devastating for me. But he doesn't, and he doesn't even get the KO. So I'm going to go ahead and get a second Trubbish down there. And at this stage, and you see there my opponent's already scooping because he knows he's not going to win. Essentially that game I could have just gone full on Landorus with Garbodor out, and his deck just can't keep up to mine when I've got lasers and Landorus hitting everywhere. I also would have been getting Mewtwo's down. Raichu's not so important in that matchup if you've got the Garbodor out. So, in a rematch of the US Nationals final, we saw the same thing happening again, which is pretty gosh darn awesome. So yeah, apparently if I was in the US Nationals final, winner. Now that was a short game, only came in at about 5 minutes, so let's play one more game with this. And I keep telling you guys how often I go second, hopefully you can believe me. We have a second mulligan there, and what we see here is he seems to be playing, oh, and another mulligan there, and another mulligan. Ugh, that sucks. And again, no supporter turn 1. The good news is I'm going second, I've got a Landorus active, and the absolutely brilliant thing is my opponent is going to be playing a deck with Pikachus and Eevees and stuff in, very similar to the Flareon list which I was playing for the majority of last season. Now if he's playing lasers and he hits heads, that's going to suck, but to be honest, one of the things that this deck really, really hates is Landorus. Now he has got a Mr. Mime, which is very interesting, and you see he's going to switch straight to Mr. Mime because he wants time to get his Pokemon out, which is fair enough. So I am going to need my Garbodor in this matchup. And you see the Burbank City Gym there. Hopefully he hasn't got a laser, because that's really going to suck. He does end me into a better hand, but now it's a little bit annoying because I don't actually have my Trubbish out. I didn't expect him to be playing Mime, so I didn't go for the Trubbish. What I do have, however, is all the tools I need to knock out his Mr. Mime on the first turn of the game, so actually I'm not going to need the Garbodor out, and I've saved myself a bench space. Now, if we have a look at his Quilava here, I mean, he's doing 40 plus poise. I mean, that Quilava's going to die pretty gosh darn quickly. Now, truth be told here, I don't want to Juniper, but I need to get some stuff out. Juniper's not really going to get me much, and I need another basic. So we are going to Juniper, and actually, this is... It's gone quite nicely. Now, we do have our second Pikachu prize, which kind of sucks. But we'll get a Trubbish. He can be Ultra Ball bait. It's certainly not the end of the world. But we're going to have that Raichu next turn. Hopefully we'll hit a DCE. So we can Hammerhead, and it really doesn't matter what we go for because that Mime will block the bench damage just for this turn. Now, my opponent is going to be going for... Oh, he's not going to be going for Quilava here. Oh, yes, he is, sorry, because he's got the Raichu there. So he's got Leafeon out. Leafeon does more damage for every energy attached to all of my Pokemon. So I'm not going to want to put too much energy down. But honestly... Oh, actually, he doesn't get the hit with Quilava. Oh, and I do get the DCE. That's wonderful. Now, this means that Leafeon's going to do 60, but honestly, I'm not terribly worried about that. It's really not a huge deal to me. Now, I just want to check my discard pile to make sure there's no fight, and there is a fighting in there, so I don't want to kill a second. So it is going to have to be a switch, which I don't like doing, but unfortunately needs must at this stage. And I'm going to get a second Landorus because against a deck like this, I know he's got the water out, but honestly, it's not the end of the world. If I can hit a laser here, I'm going to get the KO on the Quilava. And that is why I play the Bicycle there. So I do, unfortunately, miss, and that is going to suck a little bit, but it could be a lot worse. I now get to Hammerhead, and let's do 30 to the Leafeon because I don't have anything to do there. You know, it's going to take more than a couple of turns. Now, if we look at Quilava, I can do the damage to Quilava on the bench, but honestly, a laser's going to do it nicely. And you see there, my opponent gives up again, because what this deck does, and Landorus is massively overrated in this current format, what this deck does is it puts on quick pressure, very quick, consistent pressure. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing to be sniffed at. So we are going to play one more game here, just to have a quick look, see what we can come up with. We've played against one metagame deck in Charizard Pyro and run through that. We've gone against a kind of counter deck, kind of Flareon-y kind of deck, and again, we've run right through that nice and quickly. Let's play one more game. I'd like to play against an Yveltal if I'm honest with you, but again, I'm just clicking random opponents and seeing what we come up with. And you see here, we haven't got an Yveltal. Hopefully I'll be able to record a game with this against Yveltal, and then you'll be able to, see that working in the future. And you will see once again that we are going second. Now, there hasn't been any kind of cuts in this. You've just seen the three first games I'm playing. It's going second. I seem to go second far too often, but you know what? I don't really mind going second, because I'm playing a deck that just doesn't care. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is beautiful. Now we see a Sigilyph there, and he's going to try and kind of block me from doing anything particularly useful. And that's kind of annoying. And you see he's got the DCE there. Now, Sigilyph, if anyone has forgotten, does more damage for all the energy on the defending Pokemon. So what we don't want to do here is be putting any energy onto Mewtwo, because that's not actually going to do me any good. Any damage done to Mewtwo just means that any energy I put on Mewtwo is just going to help to power up Sigilyph. Now, I am going to kill a double colourless energy here. I don't want to kill a double colourless energy, but like we talked about in the previous game, Landorus is going to be doing a lot of good here. I'm also going to need Trubbish. I don't know how many Sigilyph my opponent is playing, and I don't want to run the risk that my opponent is just going to get loads of Sigilyph out and end up running right through me. So, by getting this Garbodor out, I'm going to be able to make sure that I can hit Sigilyph. Hopefully next turn I'll hit a Muscle Band for Trubbish, and I'll hit a switch to get that Mewtwo out of the active. But honestly, looking at his deck, it's not really looking like he's hitting the bench. So I don't mind giving him a turn or two to hit Mewtwo, because he's currently not bringing out any Pokemon that aren't low HP. Oh, he is bringing out a Lileep, very interestingly. Now he's going to play an Escape Rope there, but that's fantastic for me, because I want Landorus active. Now Emolga does have a resistance to fighting, but I'm still doing 10. I'm still getting damage done to the Eevee on the bench, and I can still poison him. He's Junipered, so that means I'm going to be able to get my Garbodor out. So it's really not the end of the world here. Now, he's got 2 Pokemon in the discard pile. That means Flareon's doing 40. With the Muscle Band, Flareon's doing 60. I'm really not worried about my Landorus going down anytime soon. That Flareon's going to have 30 damage on it. Not only that, but I'm going to have Muscle Band, Laser, etc. That Flareon's going down. When I played against a Flareon style deck, the absolute worst thing for me was coming up against the Landorus and Enhanced Hammer. Now, I don't hit my Enhanced Hammer, but what I do is I hit a Laser and I get my Garbodor out. So that means I am hitting the Sigilyph. Now, I don't usually pile energy onto the Landorus, but firstly, my Landorus doesn't really seem to be in any danger of being KO'd anytime soon, and what I can do is start doing my attack for 80. Now, if we look at Sigilyph, he's going to be doing 70 damage to me because I've got 2 energy on, but even with that, it's really not looking likely that Flareon, and you see there we've got Bouffalont, Sigilyph, Chandelure. Actually getting a good look at his deck. He also seems to be reliant on DCE, which is going to be wonderful in the future when I draw it into my Enhanced Hammer. So he's got Aldino, and he's accidentally played it to the bench. I assume he's going to try and discard it to heal the poison and 10 damage from the Sigilyph. But regardless, his Pokemon are starting to go down quite quickly. At this rate, I'm going to kill his Sigilyph and his Flareon with this Landorus. So I'm not terribly worried, to be honest, at this stage. Now, my computer is being a bit annoying and not actually showing me what he's doing. There's an Archon. This deck seems to have everything in. I can't imagine it's terribly consistent. So it seems like the kind of deck where if I just take down 1 or 2 attackers, I'm going to be absolutely golden. So if we look at his discard pile, he's starting to get a bunch of Pokemon there. He's got 3, 4, 5, 6 Pokemon in the discard, which means he's doing 100 damage with Flareon. That's still not very much. And he doesn't seem to have an answer for Mewtwo. So all I need to do next turn is pop a DCE onto my Mewtwo. I'm not going to need to do... And for some reason he didn't play the Aldino to get rid of the poison from Sigilyph, which is really silly, because now that Sigilyph is going to die from a Hammerhead. I can put the DCE onto the Mewtwo to make sure I've got a backup attacker for when my Landorus goes down, and he's really going to be in bad shape here. He's going to have a bunch of damage on the board. Even if he kills my Landorus, Mewtwo's just going to come straight back out and start hitting for lots of damage. Sigilyph is his Mewtwo counter, but he's not doing much with Mewtwo anytime soon. So hopefully he's got an answer here with his computer search, because at the moment he's not looking like he's in very good shape, nor does he look like he's playing particularly well. Really, he needs to get rid of that poison from the Sigilyph. The Sigilyph is going to go up to 50 at the end of his turn. Hammerhead will put him up to 80, and then he'll die from poison at the end of my opponent's next turn, giving me a nice, easy KO, as well as being able to spread 30 damage to the bench. Given that both Mewtwo and Landorus can kill his Flareon at the moment nice and easily, I can put that 30 damage onto the Eevee, and to be honest, I'm kind of laughing at this stage. Now, he did say he messed that up. I don't quite know what he's referring to, but honestly, he's messed up a few things. He still hasn't actually got an attack off, so let's get the Verbank City Gym in play. Let's get the DCE onto the Mewtwo to get a backup attacker rolling. And I really don't need to play that laser, so I'm going to save it for the future. I can get a Pikachu down, and you could attach this Muscle Band or not attach it. I'm going to choose not to attach it for the time being, because even if my opponent ends me, he's only going to be ending me to 5. So I play free Muscle Band. I'm probably going to find it. Now, if we have a look at his discard now, he's playing Flareon, so we do need to be aware of how many Pokemon he's got in his discard pile. Hits a Tails on roller skates there. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That means Flareon's doing 130, including the Muscle Band and damage on Flareon. 140, sorry. But again here, all I need to do is attach a Muscle Band, and I'm now hammerheading for 50. I haven't got the KO, but what I can do is then Skylar and grab myself a Hypnotoxic Laser. So now I'm going to be knocking out his Flareon, and I'm going to be knocking out that benched Eevee. I can attach an energy to Pikachu at this stage, because he's a single energy attacker, and he's going to be knocking out pretty much all of the stuff on his field. Now my Landorus is going to go down next turn, and then I'll still be a prize up, and I've got my Mewtwo and I've got my Raichu, so I'm really not particularly fussed either way. And you'll see what this deck does. It gets prizes nice and quickly. There's Shauna, that's and 2 supporters. That is lovely for if my opponent wants to start ending me. Now he's going to bring up Emolga. The reason, of course, is that Emolga's got free retreat. Same way when my Landorus gets KO'd, I'm just going to bring up Garbodor. Now, if I can find a switch next turn, I'm going to get that Landorus out of the active and start swinging with Raichu or Mewtwo or something like that. But at this stage, my opponent is really under some kind of time pressure here. And he doesn't actually hit anything good, which is really troubling. So now I've got a Raichu ready to attack. I've got a Mewtwo ready to attack. I'm going to Shauna just to get more cards. And you see that I don't hit too much, but I do hit an Ultra Ball. Now at this stage, I am thinning out my deck. That's what I'm really focused on. Because his deck seems so vulnerable to Landorus, I'm going to get another Landorus in anticipation. But this also just kind of builds up my field for future turns. Now I don't hit a laser, unfortunately, which kind of sucks, but what can you do about it? But again, I'm spreading damage around the field. This is going to mean that all of his Pokemon are kind of half dead. My Landorus is going to go down. I'll still be a prize up. You know, he's going to get his Flareon out here, but I've got a Mewtwo, which is going to easily KO the Flareon, and I've got a Raichu, which is going to easily KO the Flareon, and then all he's actually got on his field is an Emolga, so really not worried. Now, one of the things about this deck is that you do run yourself the risk of basically getting too many prizes before you've used resources, and this is why at this stage I'm making sure to basically use as many resources as I can. What I want to do is make sure that if I get End, I'm drawing into Bicycle, Lysandra, Juniper, stuff like that. Now at this stage, if you look at our respective boards, there's nothing he can do. You know, he's got rid of the Verbank, and I know I just Junipered my last Verbank, but if anything, that helps me if he ends me. Now next turn, I can actually Lysand and kill the Eevee, putting his Emolga on 10 damage, meaning one Hammerhead at any stage in the game will guarantee a victory for me, assuming he doesn't end me. I can't remember if he's played a supporter this turn or not. If he doesn't end me, and I don't believe he can evolve that Eevee, I'm playing too many games in a row here. But if that Eevee's still on the bench and I'm not end, I can just, and here we go. There comes out the Bouffalont, but at this stage, all I need to do is Lysand up the Eevee, and I'm just going to put a Floatstone onto Druddigon there, just so it's not in my hand anymore. We can then retreat to Landorus, and not only am I now basically saying, if I Hammerhead at any point in the game I win, because, you know, that Emolga's now got 10 damage, but if I've got 1 energy next turn, I can do Land's Judgment, which is also going to KO anything he's got. So what these 3 games have shown is just how, and I forgot to Battle City last turn because I'm not used to seeing that card. What you're seeing here is just the pure power of this deck. I don't like starting without a supporter, which I think it does a little bit too often for my liking, but I just love the power of this deck. You've seen 3 games against 3 various decks, and what you've seen is I've gone second 3 times in a row. And what's that? What's he actually done? Oh, he's called for family, which is entirely irrelevant. So all I need to do here is pop that there, and then I can Land's Judgment, discarding the fighting energy to do a ridiculous amount of damage and win the game. Yay! I've gone second 3 games in a row. And not only have I won all 3 games, but not one of these games has been particularly close. I've played against 2 counter decks, and the deck that made US Nationals final, and none of these games have been close. So hopefully this has shown you just the raw power of this deck. It does have some bad matchups. If I play against something like TDK, it won't be such a cakewalk. Similarly with Blastoise, it all comes down to whether I can get my Garbodor out. I will hopefully find a game against Evil Tower that I'll be able to pop up on my channel a little bit later, but I wanted to show you my first couple of games, first 3 games as it turned out, with this deck, and you see I've won 3 games in about 23 minutes, including loading time. So, hopefully I've shown you nicely what the US Nationals winning deck is about. As always, give this video a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't, and continue to watch and tell all your friends. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.